Who the heck is Sauron in this show?
It's anybody's guess at this moment, brother.
I know, right? So we watched episode 5 of The Rings of Power. So you know what time it is. Hit that intro! Woo!
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, everybody, if it's your first time joining us, welcome. We're two dads who love all things fandom, from Star Wars to Star Trek, Marvel to DC, and Middle-earth on down to Westeros. We love it all, and we want to bring all of our insights and love of all things nerdy to you, our viewers. So if that's your pint of Int Draft, we're here for you. And you should definitely subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on all the amazing reviews and insights that we bring to all of our favorite fandoms. So thanks for tuning in, guys. My name is Chris Matthews, and I'm joined, as always, by the stranger himself, my buddy and magical wizard, Mr. Matt Parham. How you doing today, brother?
Not too bad at all. I am really looking forward to reviewing this episode with you.
I gotta say, I was not as excited to review She-Hulk the last time. I wanted to skip that one so that we could actually talk about Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, Episode 5, titled Partings, directed by Wayne Che, and written by Justin Doble. So let's just get right into it. In this episode, Galadriel works to save her effort to recruit Numenor to the fight by trying to convince Halbrand to step up. We see how dire the situation is for the people in the Southland as the orc army, led by Adar, begins its approach, and we learn that Elrond was tricked, and Durin now holds the fate of all the elves in Middle-earth. So there's your synapse, guys. And boy, man, was this episode once again jam-packed. It feels like we are just filling the show up with as much as possible, and it's moving at light speed, way faster than I thought it was going to go. So, man, I can't believe this episode. This episode presents a bunch of possibilities for who Sauron is. I mean, we have a bunch of people here, so I kind of wanted to outline that out, and that's how I'm going to take this show. So we get to see the Harfoots again right off the bat, and it's such a beautiful scene, Matt. I don't know if you liked it or not, but I love that opening scene.
Oh, yeah.
Where we get to see the stranger, played by Daniel Wyman, and Nori, played by Markella Cavanaugh, talk about the migration that they're on, and we learn that Nori is actually being a bit successful at teaching the stranger how to speak in her language.
Right.
Yeah, so I thought that was really cool. And she talks about perils and everything along the migration. And the stranger points to himself and is very worried at that point and says, he is the peril. And if he recalls right then about the fireflies that died and everything using the nuts or whatever they had there, I thought that was really clever. The show really wants to imply that the stranger might be the big bad of this whole show. At least the editing of this show tries to relay that fact to the audience. At least for me, that's what I get from watching this. Yeah. So maybe he is the big bad. I don't know. What do you think, Matt?
I still think that it's gonna be a little bit of a twist that maybe, I don't know. I keep going back and forth. I feel in my gut that this is Gandalf, but I also think that we could be looking at Saruman here. So maybe. I don't know.
Could be Saruman. Yeah, I keep expecting a twist just because so many shows do a twist, but maybe we're viewing this show a little too critically when it comes to that kind of stuff. Maybe they're just putting everything out on Front Street here, and there's really no surprises for us. And I know with Tolkien literature and everything, he really didn't want you to misinterpret things. Like he just laid it all out by the book.
The
literally,
details
pun intended,
were there, right? Yeah, it wasn't a whole lot of mystery built into these plot lines. I know that even the first time that I read Lord of the Rings, I assumed that there was going to be more to the Tom Bombadil character, and that he would eventually come back around in the story and serve some greater importance. But no, he was literally just there to show a different kind of creature that was unaffected by the ring, and just kind of adding to the layer of the story.
And that's all he was,
Yeah. So that's what we might be getting with some of these characters on this show.
Yeah, so the stranger, I'm still not convinced that he is Sauron himself. And my basis for this, especially in this episode, is the fact that he's actually worried that he's a bad guy in this.
Mm-hmm.
And that really makes me think, and like a decent person would actually think of this kind of stuff, be like, oh man, am I a jerk? Am I being a jerk in this situation? Jerks don't think they're being jerks. They're just like, whatever. And I'm sure Sauron doesn't worry about his actions and whether he's a good or bad person. So that to me is indication enough that this character probably isn't. But let's get back to the Hallbrand watch. This is the big theory that we had on this show right here that Matt came up with, was Hallbrand being Sauron. And, you know, I definitely did see him being a contender, especially in the last couple episodes. But this one really makes me question that he is Sauron in disguise. I'm thinking maybe we're thinking too much about this, and it's just straight by the book, because this episode really doesn't indicate to me at all that he is a bad guy. And after Galadriel convinces him that he'll not find any rest on the island, he's not going to find his peace there. In a split decision right at the end there, he agrees to go back and fight for the Southlands. You see him all decked out as they go with Numenor. And after this episode, I really am not convinced that he's Sauron. There'd have to be, and my whole reasoning for this too is there'd have to be a lot of heavy lifting and creative writing to get him to become Sauron at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think, Matt?
This episode definitely put me back on the fence as far as my own personal Hallbrand theories. I got to say though, Charlie Vickers is knocking it out of the park,
killing
him. The duality that he's got going on just in his facial expressions, even tearing up as him and Galadriel were having that private conversation about his duty to his people and her not knowing all that he had been through before. You know, it was thrilling to see, and it made me rethink, is this really going to be secretly Saruman? But I don't know. We got our first scene of him as a blacksmith forging out weapons. I thought
killing it with those swords.
I thought, okay, what if after all this he forges Narsil, which eventually becomes the weapon that does him in? And I was just like, they could have so much fun with this in the writing room, and it's going to be. This is what drives a lot of the show, is that there is this odd mystery to it that I really didn't expect out of an interpretation of the Tolkien material. So I'm loving it.
I didn't either.
I'm just thrilled to see what happens next.
So here's our third contender of this. Then there's Adar, played by Joseph Mawle, who right off the bat we can kind of dismiss as Sauron in this, because it all but confirms it in the episode, as Waldreg, played by Jeff Morrill, led a company from the Watchtower, the people, the townsfolk, to swear fealty to Sauron. And Adar immediately grabs this guy and knocks him down, showing that he was angry that he was being compared to Sauron. So I really don't think that this is Sauron.
Do you think that he was angry about it, or do you think that I almost thought maybe his identity was revealed and he didn't like that? Or
it came across to me as like a competitor. It's like, that's not me. I'm not that guy. I'm going to be more than that guy. But that's the way it played for me. Maybe not, though. You might be right. Maybe it's he wants to keep that a secret. And I really did like this scene. It was a tense scene, and it showed the absolute brutality of Adar as he forces Waldreg to kill one of the young men who followed him. And thank God Theo didn't come with, right? So it's just, and
for
that was just brutal.
It was intense. And for a moment I thought, oh man, what if they're doing something that we've seen on shows like Westworld, where we have two different timelines going on at the same moment, and they're being edited together, and we're actually seeing like Hallbrand's past, and so, I don't know.
Oh man. You know how, the fan base would just lose not like they're not losing their minds right now, but man, they would just lose their minds if that was the case. Oh boy. But creatively, writing wise, in a writing sense, that would be pretty cool too. And it would be out of left field. It would surprise, I think, most of us if there was if there was a change in time between these episodes and whatnot, and like Westworld, like you're saying. Pretty crazy. But finally, in this episode, we see another new character in this, along with 2 other members that visit the Stranger's Landing site. The main person we get to see has blonde hair and looks very elvish to me. And man, they played it up too. It had ominous music playing throughout that. I mean, the look that the guy gives and the whispers. It gives this character a hidden undertow that portrays to the audience that this is such a bad character. So I looked some stuff up and everything, and I wanted to see if there was any basis for a character like this. And the theory spreading around right now that people are talking about is that these 3 people are part of the cult of Melkor, which was a Morgoth worshiping group established by none other than Sauron himself. And in the book, Sauron convinces the king of Numenor when he's on the island of Numenor to worship Melkor, which, if you don't know, Melkor is better known as Morgoth. So he was from the First Age. That was that big war that they had in the beginning of the show. And Sauron declared himself high priest of this cult. And I don't know about you, Matt, but this guy in the middle, he kind of looked like a high priest.
Kind of looked like a high priest, yeah.
And he was very magical. You saw him up there on the hill, and all of a sudden he was right down at the landing site, too. I don't know if that was just editing or if that was meant to be him just being able to teleport on down or whatnot. But I gotta say that for me, that's the leading contender for Sauron. And I mentioned this previously in a previous episode. We know from the books that Sauron appeared about 500 years into the Second Age as Anatar, Lord of Gifts, and he befriended the elven smiths of Eregion alongside of Celebrimbor. This character who we see in this seems to fit that pretty well, and I could see a character like this being a part of the elven smiths and helping out with the rings. So what do you think about that?
That was what the main thing that cast a lot of shade on my Halbrand theory was the introduction of this character, and the fact that, like you said, the music and everything sort of gears us towards this being an evil entity of some kind. And hats off to Bear McCreary for this entire episode's soundtrack. I mean, it was like you were in the movie theater. Big,
I know,
bristling noise, just from beginning to end. The soft moments, the large moments. It was all very well scored.
I was sitting there watching this episode, and I was just like, how can people have a problem with this? I'm just going to say that right now. It's like, I sat there in the theater for all 3 of the Hobbit movies, and honestly, I'm just going to say it now, this episode is much better than any of those 3 Hobbit movies, in my opinion.
Now you're going to get the fans enraged.
I know. I'm sorry, guys. Everybody can have their own opinion, and we accept all opinions here. If you don't like this material because it's not actually going along with the lore and the history, that's fine. You know, this show is for some people, and it's not for other people. The Tolkien literature out there will always be there for all of us to read and enjoy and love. I grew up reading The Hobbit, read all 3 of the Lord of the Rings books, and I went and read the Silmarillion as well. And I've had problems saying that in the past, but, you know, I read it and never heard it spoken. But
and this is the first time that I think in the show they've actually mentioned the Silmarillion.
They've mentioned it.
Cool.
No, it's the second time they've mentioned the Silmarils. Yes, because you remember when Elrond was with Celebrimbor and he saw the hammer that actually helped forge the Silmarils. And so they mentioned it in that episode as well. Yeah, but that the whole tree design in Mithril, that was something else too. And I tried to see if that was a part of any of the lore, and I don't believe that it is when it comes to Mithril, because Mithril can be found in different places throughout the Tolkien Middle Earth and all of Arda. So, and one of the things too was Elrond's dad's boat was actually made of Mithril. And so this kind of is different in the show than it is in the books as well. So you guys that have a lot of problems with this, veering from the books, you have good arguments when it comes to that. It does. But is it enjoyable? Absolutely. I'm enjoying the ride.
Yeah. I think it's kind of a little bit of a sidestep too, because we're focusing on the Mithril and the forge is being built now. And it almost seems like one is supposed to go with the other, and it's not really going to be about the forging of the rings of power, at least not yet.
Yeah, it should be. That's the name of the whole show, though. So
well,
the Rings of Power.
Right, but it does seem like Gil-galad are all focused on getting this mithril and this tower being built. And
that will play into it because one of the elven rings is actually made from mithril. So maybe they'll be able to explain away with that. And, they explain in the show how the elves, their light is dying in Middle Earth as well, unless they get mithril, which is another surprise for me. I didn't know that was a thing as well. And so if you guys don't know or don't remember from the show, they go over this apocryphal story about one of the elves on top of the Misty Mountains that is trying to protect this tree that they think one of the lost Silmarils is part of, I guess. And so he's fighting a Balrog, and so they're both pouring in both light and darkness and might into this tree, and lightning strikes and it pours into the mountain because of the roots, I guess. And so I like this idea, and it's a really cool idea. It's kind of like that yin and yang idea, the good and the bad coming together to make something whole. So it's a really cool idea, and I haven't read that before in any Tolkien. So interesting stuff.
I don't remember. I mean, but the texts are all full of these legends and different stories and things like that are passed around from the different houses and families. So
I liked how they explained away that it was apocryphal. So it's like, oh, okay, they don't know if it actually happened or not, audience. So don't be mad at us. So that was pretty cool. But for me, like, oh man, once again, the friendship between Durin and Elrond is my absolute favorite in this episode.
It's awesome.
It is so awesome.
The whole thing with the table was just priceless.
Beautiful. I love that too. And especially at the end, Matt, when Elrond is like, give me credit for giving you guys the table and everything. I thought it was great. And I really love that they give Elrond a chance to not just be a piece of cardboard there. He injects a little bit of humor every once in a while, and it's great. I like that
both
too.
actors are just burning it up.
Oh man, they are chewing up the scenery in that. And I gotta say, like, that friendship, we will come to find out from the books, we see that there are definite repercussions to this friendship, good repercussions, good things that are going to happen in the story on down the road. So I just absolutely am enjoying seeing these two characters together, the bond that they're forming, and the trust that they have for each other. Elrond was in a rock and hard place, pun intended there, I guess, with mithril and everything, and swearing an oath to Durin about not spilling the beans and everything. And he learns in this episode that, Gil-galad sent him there to find out about mithril, and he didn't know that. He was being played, basically. And to give up his friend and his trust, he didn't want to do that, even if it means like giving up the elves' immortality, I guess, in this episode. So it was really cool to see that his struggle with that. And I love that he went to his friend. They talked it out. They were open and honest with each other. And this keeps amazing me in this show, because I'm like, oh man, one of them's going to hide this from the other. And, at first I thought Durin was going to hide whatever the thing is in the chest from Elrond. And now I thought Elrond was going to hide the fact that he was telling everybody about mithril. But no, they're totally open and honest with each other. And it's for the better. So, little lesson for all of you people out there, kiddos: just be open and honest, and talk about this stuff to one another, okay? But that was a lot of fun. Absolutely love that. I love these two together so much. Can't say enough good things about it. So we also get a little bit more information too. Like I said, this episode is chock full of information and bringing you up to speed. But we also get enough information now about the black hilt that Theo has, played by Tyro Muhafidin, I think is how you say his name, the one that Theo found. It was such a relief to me, Matt, that he didn't go, with Waldreg from the tower. I was so happy that he made the right choice with that. And I was so happy to see like his relationship with Arndir improving as well when they were shooting the bows and whatnot. And when he told Arndir he had something to tell him, I thought for sure he was going to be like, I'm your son, and then show his ears and everything. We all know it's coming, guys. It's coming. We know it. Just show this already. But instead, he shows him the hilt and everything. I was like, wow, again, these characters being open and honest with each other. And it's going to prove to be the best decisions out there. So once again, audience, be open and honest with each other. So we see that this hilt, there's a picture of it. And I think that's Sauron with the hilt and the sword stabbing into a person. And I think that what that means is this sword is meant to kind of create Mordor and bring back the volcanoes and the ash and everything like that. I think that this is the key, and they're kind of relating it to a key in this episode. So I do believe that this is the key, and this is exactly what Adar wants so that they can build this land for the orcs. And this is what they need, is that hilt. And they're going to stop at nothing to get it. So we know orcs are coming. Days, if not hours away. We know that Galadriel's coming with the Númenóreans, as well as Halbrand, the future king, maybe, of the Southland. So everybody's coming. We're about to get some action. So for my rating for this episode, I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10. All in all, I enjoyed this so much, and I absolutely love the momentum that we're building, the story, the music, everything. It's all coming together, and I enjoyed this episode. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I really did too. I loved all of the moments that we got in between the different characters. I love that they just take their time with it. Again, we have a streaming service that's fully produced, that show themselves, and they are dictating how long these episodes are. And it doesn't seem to necessarily be a strict 120 minutes or 100 minutes or 60 minutes. Or,
it's serving the story.
Yeah, it's serving the story, and it felt like we got the length of the episode that it needed to be for what the story, this part of the story that they wanted to tell, and it all had that climactic ending. Everybody on the ships going towards Middle Earth, and I mean, it was perfect. They had a couple of things in there that I found to be just not questionable. But things that I'm a little bit worried about for the future, in that we have these parallels between the story we're seeing here and the familiarity with the Peter Jackson story that was told, and that we've got an Aragorn type character in Halbrand. We've got sort of a Two Towers situation being set up with Helm's Deep now being, I forget the name of the tower in this series, where the orcs are coming to lay siege to, this band of basically misfit humans that will hopefully, and I'm guessing we'll probably get the big sun rising Gandalf coming over the hillside moment, except for it'll be Galadriel this time. I think that would be a beautiful moment, but at the same time, I'm kind of hoping it doesn't end up like that, because since they are paralleling those stories, you get predictability to the show. And I don't want that. They've got a beautiful mystery that has layers. And if we start adding things that are predictable in there, then it's going to get boring. And I really don't want that to happen in the show, because for me anyway, they have not made it boring over the last 5 episodes. And I'd love to see that continue over the final 3.
Yeah, I do not envy being a writer on this show and the tightrope that they have to walk, pleasing the fans and making it entertaining and exciting and bringing some mystery into there. It is a Herculean effort. You're not going to please everybody, and clearly we're not pleasing everybody with this show.
Right.
But yeah, if you don't have any mystery in this show, we have all the text. We know exactly where this is going. So what can make it exciting? You're right.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to have some unpredictability in there.
I agree.
So for my rating, just because of those parallels and the fact that, again, it might make it predictable as we get to the finale, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 as well. I was just thrilled with the motion that they keep creating with the plot.
Right.
And how, even though these are long episodes, we're getting through massive amounts of story, but we're still getting those quiet moments in between the characters, building those relationships. It all feels very fleshed out, very well thought through.
Right.
And I just love it. So yeah, 9 out of 10 for me as well.
Love this episode. I think both of us do. 9 out of 10 for both me and Matt on this one. Definitely worth watching and getting into. And for all you folks that are having a problem with this show. All I can say is just enjoy the ride. Think of this as its own thing.
It is.
Yeah, just take it for what it is. And it is some great filming and writing. I gotta say, I'm constantly impressed with this show. I mean, they're spending the money, obviously, but man,
the production value continues to be amazing. As the ships were getting ready, we saw like horses in the background being lifted over.
I felt really bad for that horse that was being carried in there, and you hear him in the background neighing too. I'm like, what is this horse thinking at this moment?
Even, I don't know if you saw this, Chris, and they're doing this same kind of thing in House of the Dragon, but the explosion that happened on that ship at night, I mean, it wasn't just kind of dust and cloud. You saw pieces flying off, crashing into other things, some splashing in the water. And we saw this kind of thing in House of the Dragon when we watched that battle happening off in the distance. There's so much detail being put into these effects that it makes it just have that hyper-real sensitivity.
Absolutely.
And I love it. It's just a brilliant amount of texture that sets this apart from regular television by far.
Right. Hats off to Weta for that. They are doing a fantastic job. So, hello there. Hats off. You can see my crazy hair, guys. So, there you go. That's why I'm wearing the cap and everything. So, if you didn't know. But, so that's a 9 out of 10 for both of us here at Fatherly Fandom. We hope that you guys had an awesome experience with this episode. Join us again next time. We'll be reviewing House of the Dragon. We'll be reviewing She-Hulk is still going on. Andor's coming out, and we'll be reviewing Rings of Power next week too. So from our families to yours,
have a good one.
Adios.